Hey everybody, back to the Career Invincibility Radio Show. It's Christine Parakis, and we are here with a wonderful guest that I'm so honored to have with us today. I have to tell you, this guest is an amazing heart healer with over 20 years of experience helping people heal and empower themselves. She works with hypnotherapy, energy work, relationship and life coaching, breath work, music, and more. She's traveled a long way to be who she is today, and coming from a harsh culture and abusive family background in a country almost destroyed by war. She's learned the hard way to get through feeling and processing the past and surrendering and trusting the future. Melisa has a musical album that's released as Melisa Rebronja and an artist named Imar that's with singing and devotional music in over 10 languages. She's pioneering a movement called hypnotic dance meditation, where she's known as Missy Heart, and she has a series of interviews on feminine spirituality and healing practices called Sacred Body Events, Reclaim Your Feminine Power. And all of this will be on her webpage that's in the show notes. And most especially, when I first met Melisa, she was a person who saw the light within me, and that's what she brings out in others, and it's such an extraordinary gift. And so welcome, Melisa, thank you so much for being with us here today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Christine, for such a lovely intro.
Well, it's just the truth. That's all I can say. So, what we like to start off with is people's journeys, right? With none of us have gotten to where we are today in a straight line. And I know that you've had some incredible challenges and experiences in your life. And I'd love for you to share a bit of your story of how you got to where you are today.
Well, thank you, Christine. So, you've said almost destroyed by war, and I was like, oh no, it was destroyed by war. There's no almost, it was destroyed. So basically, I was born in former Yugoslavia, and I quickly moved to Canada as a baby, but I went back as a 6-year-old. So really my childhood consisted of growing up in Canada and then former Yugoslavia for a decade, and it was basically the very last golden years of that country, because as most people know, there was a civil war in the 90s that destroyed the country. So now it consists of a bunch of different smaller countries. And I lived and I was born in Belgrade, which used to be the capital city of former Yugoslavia, and it's now the capital city of Serbia. So that's where it all started. And I was the new Canadian kid on the block, and learning about the world and just realizing that there is a tension. I suppose I look back now and I realize that I was being conditioned for oneness, brotherhood, unity, all that stuff. Like I was in choirs, singing songs. But at the same time, there was this nationalism and separation brewing underneath the surface, which eventually exploded and a civil war broke out. And so I was lucky enough to move back to Canada then. And my plan was just to brush up on my English, but the country was destroyed by war and I never returned. So that's how my journey began in terms of where I lived and how it all started. So in Canada, I'm very grateful that I spent most of my life there, because I learned to be in a community, a multicultural community, where I was able to have the experience of all kinds of different people. And that's especially beneficial today. So I would not have experienced that in Yugoslavia because, well, there's, just the nations of former Yugoslavia. But in Canada, I was able to have friends of all kinds of countries, races, religions, and that shaped who I am today. And as we, seeing what's happening in the United States today, it's a good skill to have to keep my sanity.
Well, no kidding, but it's one of the most amazing and striking things about you is the beauty that you see in everything and everyone and how it exudes from you. And you've come from a place that was, sheer destruction. And how do you find that in yourself? Because I know so many people are walking around not able to see their own beauty, not experiencing the beauty around them. And you embody that.
Well, thank you, Christine. I try, I suppose, I'm not perfect. So definitely, especially I've been,
I did not
tested.
Say perfect.
Yeah, I've definitely been tested in the last little while with everything that's been going on here. But I would say that as a kid, growing up in former Yugoslavia, and then, these are people that look the same. Like you won't be able to tell if somebody's Serbian, Croatian, or Bosnian by the way they look or even sound like. And, so when they're pointing out differences and there's this hatred happening, as a kid, I was wondering, well, how am I different? Or it was bizarre. So it's like, I think hatred is taught. So then when I grew up in this, there's a word actually called Balkanization. And what that means, and that comes from basically my culture. I have Balkan DNA. I was born in the Balkans. So what that means is like when something tries to come together and then it keeps being destroyed. So Balkanization, like it just doesn't know how to fit together. So every 50 years, there seems to be a war in the Balkans. And what's interesting about that specific place is that it's the place in the world where the three major religions come to meet. So there's Christian Orthodox, there's Catholic, and there's Islam coming from the south. So, because Yugoslavia had all those influences. And they weren't able to really bridge, or I entered the world when it seemed like it did, but then it got destroyed, I suppose. So I think we're here to learn that, the unity, to really embody it. And so when I left, Yugoslavia, living in Canada, and then seeing how people were living peacefully, respecting each other's diversity, cultures, religion, I saw that it was possible. And I still am very proud to be Canadian, because I think the multiculturalism in Canada is something that the world could look up to. Because I did feel a difference when I moved. So I've been living in the States almost a decade now. It's different. It feels different when you cross the border.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. That, and still tell us about how this journey from, that history into music and to what you're doing now in the healing arts.
Great question. Thank you. So I have always had a voice, a singing voice, and a
beautiful singing voice, I may say.
So I was always told, like, oh, you should be a singer and all this stuff. So I went to university. It was nothing related to the arts. It was just like, do the smart thing. So it was a program. It was a business bachelor's degree with a minor in psychology. So I really loved psychology and working with people. And then I moved to Vancouver from Toronto, and I met somebody who said that they were a life coach. And I said, what is that? So when he told me about it, and he told me that there was actually a school in Vancouver that you can go to for like a 6-month program, I enrolled in it. And then at the same time, I was also, I became an independent artist. So I had these parallel careers of being a life coach and then being an independent musician. What I didn't realize was happening back then, now having 2020, looking back, is that when I was writing my music, recording my music, I was actually healing myself. So I was on a healing journey myself, because my music was my healing journey. So basically I've recorded 3 albums, and it started off with adult contemporary music. Most of the songs are about breakups, so healing the heart. And then I did another project, which was MR, and I did spiritual world music, which was more like healing the soul. and that had more to do about healing, global healing on a national level. So that relates to my culture and where I come from. So I was actually on a healing journey, and it just literally just came out of me. So, so that led to me then continuing my healing journey. And all my life, I'm always going to continue. Like, I'm enrolled in a program right now called eco-psychology. Like, my learning and growing journey will never stop. And so about 5 years ago, I officially opened my own practice as a hypnotherapist, heart healer, and I've been doing that ever since. And I feel very grateful and honored to work with people. So that's how I ended up here. As you know, we're all on a healing journey, and I'm just sharing that with people that come into my life in various ways.
So how, we've all been through some forms of trauma, varying degrees of something. And, how do you approach that in helping others? What can you share with us that our listeners can take away as something that they can, hold on to for themselves?
So the main thing I would say is to understand that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. So there's nothing to be fixed. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. So this is just about the journey that we're here for, is to get to allow ourselves to be who we are authentically. So I often use this, be beautifully you, be authentically you. And that is the journey of the heart. So like, what are we removing, and how deep do we need to go so that we can feel like we are ourselves? And a lot of time that has to do with processing very gently, and no rush, no pressure, but just a gentle journey of uncovering how you were affected in the past by certain events, certain traumatic experiences. And it's different for everyone. Like, something that was traumatizing for me may not be traumatizing for you. So it's you discovering your voice, how you felt, and honoring those feelings. So I often say, a feeling is healing. But a lot of us are afraid to feel, or we think we're going to be overwhelmed by it. But it's just about you being very gentle with yourself, breathing and staying present in the body, and just voicing that which, expressing that which you felt, so that you can be fully present in your life here now. And sometimes that's subconscious and we're not aware of it, but the healing work that I do creates a safe space for that to happen.
Well, I can say that you live those words authentically in just how you approach your own learnings as you go through. It's one of the marvels of being around you, is how you are willing to express your discomforts, your challenges, the things that don't feel good, or where you're stuck on something. Because even you, as a healer of others, experiences and encounters that, right? So you're never not learning. And I love that quality of authenticity and integrity that you bring to it, making it very safe for me to feel flawed and to have, the things that happen in the life that I need to work on or work with. And I really appreciate that. And, I guess, how would you advise somebody who is confronting that level of distress? We'll get uncomfortable when something's not going our way, or we're encountering something that doesn't feel good, or, we're in trauma. What are some steps that we can use to manage ourselves?
Great question, Christine. And, we all have wisdom